welcome back to the WTF Sunderland podcast as we prepare ourselves for our biggest game in well over a decade, give or take. Dan Ballard's folding deck chair impression was enough to get us over the line against Coventry City. I'm still not down from it at the time of speaking, and now all that stands in our way is Chris Wilder and Sheffield United at Wembley. Last time he was on the show, I said I hope you don't have to come back, no offence, but I don't want to speak to you again because it was the nature of the promotion race. But I'm secretly delighted he's back so soon, but I hope he's not back next season. Ollie from the Sheffield United Way and the EFL Debate, how are you doing, mate? You all?
Yes, I am very good, thank you. I am also riding a bit of a high. Obviously, we had quite the performance ourselves in terms of the way that the playoff semi-finals have gone so far, but I can't pretend the anxiety isn't starting to build within me. I'll this time next week, I will be an absolute wreck. So, yeah, you've got me while I can still speak.
It's funny because I'm going away to Portugal tomorrow, so I've had to do the preview early. So you're getting this like a week in advance. So it is like a week away. So for me, I'm still, as I said off air, I'm still Dan Ballard.
Yeah.
I'm Dan Ballard in it up. But it sounds like the nerves have kicked in for you already, maybe because of Dan Ballard.
100% because of Dan Ballard. I was talking to the lads from Not the Top 20 on Tuesday night while we watched the game, just messaging around, just sort of having a bit of a conversation. And as the game went on, I was kind of like, we're going to be okay. You know, I'm watching this game. I think we're going to be okay. You know, as long as we perform to our level, as long as we've got our standard, we're probably going to be fine here. I've just seen us tear apart Bristol City, and I've not seen anything here that worries me. And I thought that for 121 minutes. And then after 121 minutes, and I think it was 54 seconds, but I could be a couple of seconds out, I saw the most insane moment that I can remember in the playoffs. I saw a stadium explode in a way that you don't see very often outside of the very, very biggest clubs. And for want of a better phrase, my arse fell out a little bit.
So did
because, yeah, it was one of those moments where, you know, reflected on there. My immediate reaction was, oh. And then my second reaction was, oh, no. I didn't want to see that because, you know, for 121 minutes, I thought that there wasn't that much to fear. And then suddenly in 5 seconds, you've gone from this poor, quite not a great watch game of football to, you know, I reflected on there. I can't even fathom how many thousands of people about to descend on Wembley with the most amazing moment behind them, with the momentum that generates, the excitement, the celebration. And all of a sudden, there is very much a very big thing to fear and a massive obstacle in the way of us achieving that sort of target, achieving that dream of finally being able to win at Wembley. And yeah, my messages went from, oh, I think we're going to be okay too. Oh, I cannot see any way that that moment doesn't carry them to promotion. What are we going to do? How do we stop this?
Now, I think we both watched each other's games because of natural reason. And I said, I did the Coventry preview with Joey, and we both kind of like got our cigars and started smoking and went, I secretly fancy Bristol City here. And we were wrong. We were really wrong. I think most Sunderland fans would have watched the games, like I say, for obvious reasons. I watched them both. Obviously not for you, but they were the most boring playoff games I've ever watched in my absolute life, especially in comparison to ours. Not that there's any competition, they both get you to the same place, but look, you're there, you've done it. That's all that really matters for either team. How did you find the performance over 2 legs? Because obviously the red card changes a lot. It was a red card. I don't care what anyone says. It was.
Obviously.
Like, there's no debate. But look, you did your job and quite comfortably, really.
Yeah, the exact word I used was different. I've never, like you say, I've never seen really a playoff game like it. It's not one of those where you would expect it to come. Similarly to you, to be honest, I was going in and I was kind of saying, if we can get out of Ashton Gate with a draw, I'd take that. You know, I'd be happy enough. You know, they've got a fantastic home record. I think they've got the 4th best in the division. They were a team that, you know, had sort of fought the way into the playoffs. And I was secretly, you know, starting to feel it a little bit. I was nervous about the way that it was going to go. But to be honest, even before the first goal, the red card, the penalty, I thought United were comfortable. I thought that we'd just got them at arm's length. I thought the way that we'd changed our system and we're using the front two had just nullified their biggest threats through the centre of midfield. And so I was feeling really confident. Obviously, once the red card happens, there's only ever going to be one winner. And at 3-0, they had no choice but to try and come out at Bramall Lane. I thought they, you know, I recognise there'll not be many of them watching this. However, it's always important just to give them the due. I think, Bristol City had an amazing season, and I don't want them to have sort of lost their amazing season in the fact that it was a bit embarrassing by the end. But, when you then reflect on it, they're closer to second from bottom than they are to us in points. Like, what did we expect from how that game was going to go? It can't be a shock that we've just dominated them the way that we did. And so, yeah, it was comfortable, it was easy, but I enjoyed that. The party at Bramall Lane, the celebrations, the way that we were able to do that game as almost a tribute to George Baldock as well, with the way the fans reacted, with the way that we celebrated both before and after. I thought it was a really beautiful atmosphere at Bramall Lane. And actually, the game being as much of a walkover as it was in the end probably did benefit us in the way that we were able to sort of react, celebrate, and almost get rid of some of the anxiety that otherwise would have overruled the night. And given our history in the playoffs, might have been the thing that tore us apart.
It's funny. I was looking at the championship table before I came on, and I was like, oh, 90 points, finished in third. Oh, I remember when Sunderland did that in 1998, and I went, what happened? Oh, yeah, we've got through the playoffs, and I don't know if there's been any other team that's had 90 points since then, but last time we did it and were really, really good. Oh, have you done it before?
Yeah, we've done it.
Oh, so Sunderland and Sheffield United have both finished the season in third place with 90 points and fucked it at Wembley.
Yep.
So
And Leeds did it exactly the same last season against Southampton. So there is a lot of precedent for 90 points and having obviously messed it up. Obviously, I have to do the Chris Wilder thing. I can't pretend I don't. We actually won 92 points. It's the most ever, I think, in EFL history. The only team that's ever won more points and not been automatically promoted was Wednesday, and they did win the playoffs. So if we don't win at Wembley, we'll break our own and yours and Leeds' joint record for most points ever without getting a promotion in the EFL.
I wanted to ask you about the season because there was a point I felt Sunderland were in it up until maybe the Leeds game, and then unfortunately that kind of made me go, ah. And then we know what happened with Sunderland. Everyone listening to this knows what happened towards the end of the season. Doesn't matter. Who cares? For Sheffield United, I was like, okay, Burnley are boring but sturdy. They'll get a couple of little draws. They will drop in the points. You got beat off us, okay, but that was January. You looked pretty strong, and I was like, I think Sheffield United and Leeds. I think Sheffield United might win the league, and I think Leeds might be second, or one way or the other. And then you just gradually fell away and ended up quite far away from both of them, which is kind of odd. But in the same way, I felt like by the time that you'd fell out of the automatics, you had games to play to build momentum. And momentum was a big word with Sunderland fans because we lost 5.
Yeah.
But like, how was the season for Sheffield United? Because I think you've come down. At first, if I remember correctly, it was like we might not go up because of various reasons, the point deduction. And then it looked like you were. And then I wouldn't say you completely duffed it, but the Plymouth game and it slowly eroded away into like nothingness, and that can really derail and disappoint. How was it from your perspective to go from a really commanding position to not?
Gutting, really. And it's, it sums up who I am as a fan. I think that I take my own responsibility in it as well, because we played Oxford. We were the 3 o'clock kickoff. Leeds had played at 12:30. I think they'd played Swansea. They'd drawn, so we were above them by a point, and we had a game in hand. Our game in hand was Oxford away, and I muttered the words, "I think we're going to win the league." We lost three in a row within a week. And sometimes you have to take it on the chin and go, yeah, I might have jinxed us. But yeah, it was gutting because we felt as though we were on such a roll. We felt as though we'd become this kind of machine. And there was a run of games where I said, this is where we mess it up. There's no way that we come out of Sheffield Wednesday away, Coventry at home. We'll get probably 1 point out of 6. And we'll be left behind by Leeds and Burnley. We'll then start to catch them up in the games against Oxford, Millwall, Plymouth. But then we go to Burnley and that'll be the death of us. We'll be really close, but we'll just miss out. So to beat Wednesday away, to absolutely batter Coventry at Bramall Lane, we kind of felt as though we've done the hard bit, the bit where we were going to throw away the points. And so we'd gone from a position where in August I said, I think, playoffs would be a really good season. We've got a complete rebuild. We've got ownership disasters going on around us. We've got to overcome the sort of trauma of last season and rebuild everything about the club, playoffs would be a fantastic achievement. To be in on the 1st of April, clear at the top, game in hand, the title's there to be won. And so to throw it away from that position really hurt. It really was gutting, but we fortunately had enough time. So this is United's 10th playoff campaign, I think. We've not won them yet, but there's a first time for everything. But this is our 10th playoff campaign, but it's the first time we've gone in with a gap. Like every other time, we've either confirmed our place on the final day by either missing out on automatics or chasing our way in from the other side. So it's the first time we've ever been able to just take stock, go, we know we're not going up. We've got 2 or 3 games. Let's see what works. And actually, what we've done really well this time is we've completely changed system. We used those 2 games at the end of the season, 3 games, I think, if you include Burnley, to completely try a new system, a new style of football, a new way of playing. And it's really worked. It seems to have clicked really quickly. We got quite positive performances, if not always results, in those last sort of 2 or 3 games. Then, of course, to just go to Bristol City and do what we've done. I feel like this is the best position we've ever been in going to Wembley. That'll bite me on the backside, the same way that thinking we were going to win the title bit me on the backside. But I think actually it's done us a favour. I think we actually come into this better for having blown it as quickly as we did. Because if we dragged it out until the final day and lost it against Blackburn, that'd have taken some recovering from. Whereas I feel as though we've managed to get over the disappointment and now everybody's back and ready to say, right, we're going to do it and we're going to do it this way.
I'm wondering how Wilder turned it around, because I've watched a lot of Sheffield United this season, and Leeds and Burnley and Coventry, because of the obvious reasons. Yeah. Like, you're right next to us, and this was always a possibility that we were going to face one year. And then I think you lost 3-0 to Hull, and then the next day we went, we can catch them up here a bit, because at the time we were in the automatics. Then we duffed it up at home to Plymouth, where we conceded a last-minute goal, and you thought, oh, for God's sake. So you had like that scare, and then it continued where it kind of unravelled completely from the outside looking in. Which I say a lot in preview shows, by the way, but it is kind of the point of the show, I guess. But the the Plymouth game where you lost, and Wilder does...
I thought we were done that day. I thought absolutely everything was done. I thought everything had gone. There was part of me that said, you know what, like, do we need to cut and run here and make a change? Because that day, Wilder lost his mind altogether.
For no reason as well.
Well, yeah.
Really? Well, for a reason, but like it was a bit like, oh, come on, Chris. You were celebrating tables last week.
This is the thing, is that, he'd lost it before that as well. So we went to Oxford, and I think it got into the players. We played complacent at Oxford. We lost because we didn't have any urgency to our play. We played as though we thought that by gracing the pitch, we would win. That was the attitude it looked like we'd played with. And then we were shell-shocked when we lost. And you saw the players scrambling around going, wait a minute, we've lost this. Where's that come from? And it carried over into Millwall. So then we were 1-0 down at half-time against Millwall with exactly the same kind of shell-shocked look on everyone's face to go, but we don't lose like this. This isn't... And it took us a long time to recover. So then pre-Plymouth, Wilder did his press conference that was all about pressure. He got asked, how are you feeling the pressure now that you've, thrown away this fantastic position? And he did this really bizarre rant where he said, there's no pressure on us. Pressure is all on Plymouth. There's more pressure to getting into division than staying out of it. And he did this really weird rant that just felt off. And it felt like what we'd avoided doing all season. Then we played the way we did. And Jack Robinson just looked like a walking... He wanted to fight anybody who would listen. We played like a team that were in panic mode. So then Wilder kicked off at full time. And I thought that I didn't really know how we bounced back from that. Because I just thought... his head's gone. And when your head's gone to that extent, I don't know how you bring it back around. We were just completely burnt out. The players looked like it had gone to their heads. Obviously, like I say, Wilder had just lost his mind for a little bit trying to scrap with their players. And it felt like that was the season. It felt like the season ended in that afternoon. So there's a lot of credit that needs to be given for turning that back around, because it was easy to spiral from there. But we sort of just took a bit... I think we took 2 or 3 days off after the Plymouth game. We said, right, let's get away from it. Let's focus on something else. Let's just try and look at the games in front of us. We were a bit lucky that we got Cardiff next. And, by that point of the season, Cardiff were just there for the taking. I think my five-a-side team could have rocked up and had a fancied us on that afternoon. But that just sort of settled everybody down, and it reminded us that, we are a good team. We're not in crisis. We then lost, but in a decent performance at Burnley. And that seemed to galvanise us. I think seeing their fans celebrate the way that they did, seeing them pitch invade and having the celebrations going around us, it almost refocused all the players. You could almost see sort of a difference in the attitude from that moment to the end of the season, where it became, rather than just about sort of, we're going to power everybody through and go on passion, it seemed a lot more steely determination, a lot more of a, actually, no, we're not having this. We're not having them laugh at us and celebrate in his face. We're going to do this. We're not watching another team celebrate in front of us. And I think there's hopefully, a lot of power in that. And maybe it is that moment at Burnley when they were all up and celebrating in front of our players that'll be the one that galvanises not to let you do it.
You talked before about the Dan Ballard moment, which I just want to talk about all the time, if I'm completely not honest with you, but I have to hold back a bit. But I watched I think it was the EFL debate. It was something along like you were there, and there was Coventry fan and Sunderland fans.
Sportsman entitled.
That's the one. And a few people, I wouldn't say anyone feared Coventry, but it felt like Coventry were like maybe the team where everyone went, oh no, because they're doing all right. And well, I mean, they're crap, and we're obviously much better, as we found out. So now that you know that it's Sunderland, outside of we've had two really good games earlier this season. We have had two really good games, both of which, obviously I didn't enjoy the first one because of the result, but it felt like, oh, hang on a minute, that was the first time I felt we could match the top three. And then the second game, deservedly won, which I'm sure we'll get onto in the semantics of both games. But how does it feel like it's, now that it's Sunderland, after what you've seen against Coventry and taken out, obviously, I understand the fear that the way we won the game, I would understand that as well, if I'm completely honest, without blowing smoke up our own backsides. But how does it feel at Sunderland? Because we've had two good games this season, haven't we?
We have, yeah. And I think as a team, I think I made a joke. It might have been on that show, but it might have been on a different one. I said, tell you what, if I had a choice of who to play at Wembley, if I could play the Sunderland that went from February to May, and I could play the Coventry that went from September to December, either of those two options would be fine. But I did say the worst case scenario is we get the Sunderland that played from August to December, because that version of Sunderland was, in the two games we played against each other, in the points won on the pitch, as good as us, and arguably had everything that we don't like playing against. Because we saw it so much in that game at the Stadium of Light in particular. The pace, the power, and sort of the finishing of Mayenda and Isidore were just something that Anel and Robinson could not handle. They couldn't counter the fact that they got these two players who were just raw, but so full of running and of that kind of exciting. They'll dribble with it and go past you. They'll knock it and run. It can go over the top. There were so many different ways of hurting us that neither of our defenders could handle that. And it panicked them. They made two big errors in the game, which, were forced by those players and just the fear of them coming at us. And so for me, that was always my biggest worry about the playoffs. I didn't want to play Coventry at Wembley because there's a narrative around us playing Coventry. And I'm sure you felt the same, actually, when it came against them. There's just for some reason something about them that makes you go, I'm okay, actually, I'd rather not. But on the pitch, the players, the fear, the biggest threat to us tactically through individuals is always going to be Sunderland, because you've got those keys that unlock the doors that specifically fit to open United's weaknesses. And so, it's a nervous one. I think the big thing for me was, if you play the way you did against Coventry, I do think we'll pick you off. I think we're better going forward than them. I think we're more dynamic in attack than them. I think the way that we've got Kiefer Moore and Tyrese Campbell gives us different ways of hurting you that they weren't utilising. I think if you give the amount of sort of time and space on one of the wings to Gustavo Harmer, there's no way he doesn't pick the pass that opens the door that Coventry couldn't quite do. They weren't quite able to take advantage of all the pressure, all of that sort of space they got. So I think if you try that against us at Wembley, I like to think that we will hurt you in ways that Coventry just couldn't. And I think that would hopefully open the game for us. But what worries me is I saw something, and you'll have seen so much more of him than I have. But watching Sunderland this season, especially, I say this season, since January, the player that's just disappointed me, I think is the word, is Enzo Lefebvre. I was expecting so much from him, and I know he's been picked up injuries, and so that's obviously going to have affected his development. But I've been so disappointed when I've seen him on the ball, because I just keep thinking, like, I expected so much more here. I really thought he was going to be a player who took you from being, you know, in that battle to a proper contender, right up there and taking it forward. And I was disappointed. And I thought watching both legs of the semi, I just continued to be disappointed, really. He had moments of magic, like the pass for Isidore, where you know he hurts you. But then the second half of extra time, I think he moved central. You put Mundell on down the left. Enzo Lefebvre moved into the centre. And all of a sudden, you saw what that fear was. Because every time the ball was passed into him, he either already had all the space in the world despite being marked, and you kind of went, there was somebody marking him. I don't understand how is he in space? Or there was a man really tight in his back, but his first touch just spun him. And he was immediately taking players out of the game through his movement, through the way he could get the ball into feet. And so what worried me then was, actually, if you twist system, not even significantly, but you get, obviously, Mundell out on the left now that he's back fit. You know the danger he had. If he's not fit, I think Watson was also on the bench, so you've got that freedom to change. Watson punished us at Bramall Lane. I know he didn't get a goal, but he was a real problem at Bramall Lane earlier in the season. So you've got that left side locked down. It means Lefebvre can come central. And actually seeing the way that he can control the game, all of a sudden, I said that, you know, Isidore and Mayenda unlock the door to United weaknesses. Well, he unlocks them. He's the man holding that key and saying, right, I can play any pass you want, get in behind those defenders. So the more I talk, the more worried I am, actually, Graham. So I'm going to stop.
You're right in what you say. Like the part of me, I think, was a QPR game, last game of the season. I went, oh, Enzo, I just wanted more. But then the caveat was always, well, he's not a left winger.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I don't know how many Sunderland fans seen this, but Romain Mundell has never played with Enzo Lefebvre up until extra time, or when he came on late in the second half, and he commented on Enzo's Instagram saying, lovely to share a pitch together, finally. And I was like, I think, I can't speak for every Sunderland fan, but the lads that I know, the lasses that I know are like, please God, get Mundell on the left, go to a middle five and get Enzo in the middle. The argument is more whether you play Chris Rague as a kind of narrow right-sided player, or whether, and drop Roberts, or whether you just go with Roberts, who normally plays every week, but has been, I love you, Paddy, but disappointing recently. So, yeah, I do feel like he's been stunted an awful lot by being put on the left, and he had that hamstring injury. It was interesting. I read an interview with him by Phil Smith in The Echo, and he was talking about how playing on the wing was different because it was less about him trying to find space in the middle and opening up the pitch, and more about sprints. And he said, I think that's how I did my hamstring injury, because I don't
not used to
sprint. Yeah, absolutely. So I think I do feel like Mundell being back, putting Enzo in the middle, I'm not going to lie to you, that makes me go, ooh. And I think we've seen a little bit of it in the second half, which I thought, as much as Coventry fans like to tell us they dominated 100 and whatever minutes of it, I thought we dominated that extra time as soon as Mundell came on and changed things. And I think that was a big reason behind it. Now, going back to that game, the game against yourselves at home, I thought we deserved a point at least away, but it's a long time ago.
For 45 minutes, you were so much the better team. It was painful to watch.
And it was a frustrating game. We missed a pen, and we continued to miss pens, but which is why I'm really pleased Dan Ballard did what he did, by the way. But I felt like the second game was the first time Sunderland switched to like a 4-4-2 that season, and we went with a front two. And I think the football cliche is Mayenda absolutely murdered you, and
he did.
That gives me so much confidence going into the game at Wembley. But look, it's a long time ago. That was New Year's Day. So we sang Auld Lang Syne a long time ago. Things have happened. Transfers have happened. The outlook of both teams' seasons has completely changed. Points are nowhere near each other anymore. What are the key differences we're going to see from Sheffield United? Because, look, if you want to talk about the January game, I think we'll win. But, like, so much has changed in 6 months, hasn't it?
We're a different team now, and we're going to play a completely different system. You'll see a lot different from United from what we were. So up until, that bad run that we talked about, we'd been a 4-2-3-1 team. You probably relate to it a little bit, but you just changed 6 months earlier than we did. But we were a 4-2-3-1 team all the way through the season. It was obviously quite easy to pick exactly how it was going to look. But what's changed is that we've moved to this, I say 4-4-2, but it's a 4-2 in the centre, 2 wingers, 2 centre forwards. It's a really attacking 4-2-4 almost at times. And so what we'll expect a lot more of this time is us trying to bypass midfield. So rather than allowing players like Bellingham and Neil to have the opportunity to get time on the ball, to sort of have the opportunity to win individual duels against Vinny Souza and Sidney Peck. We'll just bypass that and we'll be going long over the top to Kiefer Moore. So I think it's going to be a big individual battle that's going to decide a lot of how the game plays. And it's going to be Kiefer Moore against Dan Ballard.
Yeah.
And the Dan Ballard that I just saw play in that semi-final would, meat and drink for him is going to be us trying to go long to a big striker. He's going to want that physical battle. He's going to want that sort of competition. And so the interesting bit for me is what we learned against Bristol City, which is when we'd gone long to Kiefer Moore and he'd not had all the luck in the world, or they'd started to come onto him and get their physicality over the top. We actually switched it up a little bit. And the way that we created that first goal at Bristol City away with the red card, the penalty, we actually dummied it into Kiefer Moore, who dropped it as if he was going to come and take it on his chest. We actually went to Tyrese Campbell, who did the flick on, and Kiefer Moore then spun to run through. And that's what brought Dickey out of position and meant he had to pull him back down. And I thought that was really quite intelligent forward play. So rather than just having that isolated one and relying on the three behind to create, we've now got a lot more angles where we're going to try and hurt you in terms of using that partnership. It'll still be Gustavo Harmer out on the left. There are some things that might say, we've just had a good conversation about Enzo Lefebvre and how you stunted his impact by putting him on the left. Well, Gustavo Harmer's going to be on the left. And obviously the big thing there will just be whoever is marking him. And obviously I think Tri-Hume probably being the best, or at least if we take Leeds and Burnley out of it, which is probably always the best thing to do, probably the best right back in the league this year. I think he's been outstanding. Obviously had a really strong season. I'd love to swap him if you ever fancied it. But so him against Gus Harmer is again where we're going to try and hurt. And then the right hand side's really difficult to predict because obviously all season we've been a team that using our wingers go down the right and the right winger cuts in onto a left foot. So we've used Ben Brereton Diaz to do that, Jezrak Saki to do that, Andre Brooks to do that. And all three play the role very similarly. They get the ball out wide, they try and drag you as wide as they can, but they're always then coming inside on the left foot to either shoot or cross from sort of that kind of half space just around the corner of the box. What we've done more recently is put Ryan Brewster there. Ryan Brewster's right-footed for a start, which is a little bit easier. It means he can go around the outside if he needs to, or come on the inside because he can still use his left. He's been a lot more involved in the game. But the other thing he's done more than anybody else is he's almost allowed the fullback to get in front of him. Obviously, we know Sirkin likes to get forward and his impact in terms of goals, assists that he's trying to bring to this team. Well, what Brewster wants from that is to always be behind him. He's always looking for that space for the pass. So as soon as it comes through, if we're going long to Moore, he's got the option to flick for Campbell or the option to flick right out to the wing for Brewster to run into almost open space. So we've just got a really different structure to a way that we both use our wingers, but also the way we've got those two centre forwards playing. But the defensive structure is exactly the same, to be honest. In terms of the attack that tore us apart at the Stadium of Light, there'll be nothing different apart from Vinny Souza's fit. And that makes a big difference because the physicality of that man, the way that he is sort of able to use his speed to almost sweep up anything that happens where Robinson or Ronell get themselves in trouble, I think that's something that I didn't realise how much we missed it until he was fully fit again. Because he was playing and I was kind of going, he's not making that much of a difference. Then we rested him the last two games of the season, put him back in against Bristol City, and Wilder said, Vinny Souza's been injured, but he's fit now. And then I went, yeah, he's good. Yeah, you're right. He wasn't fit, and now he's fit again. So I think they're the big changes. It's the way we use the attacking two, the way that the wingers are going to try and get down, and Brewster's going to try and stay a little bit wider, and Vinny Souza's job in terms of protecting the defence against Mayenda and Isidore, if that helps at all.
I think I realised last week when we did the playoff show that we do this preview show and essentially we talk about the game loads. It doesn't matter because someone could get sent off in the first 10 minutes and it's completely pointless. So just ignore everything you don't want to hear and hear the thing that you do.
Yeah, when Vinny Souza gets sent off 5 minutes in, you can ignore all of that.
Talking of things that are playing on my mind, this might surprise you, but you'll understand it. You beat us to a signing in January that I was fine with because I don't think he's very good. And
I can confirm he isn't.
For the money paid, I was like, no. So 1 goal in 16. I was going to ask if we dodged a bullet, but look, I'm not going to ask that question because what I'm actually worried about is that he scored against us twice this season for Stoke. Is there something about that makes Sheffield United fans think, is Tom Cannon going to just randomly turn up on the big stage because he likes a goal against Sunderland? Because it's played on my mind.
I'll be honest, didn't know he liked a goal against Sunderland, but always nice to hear. Always gives you that little bit of extra confidence. It's such a funny one because earlier this season, obviously, I make jokes about it all the time. We spent £23 million on Ryan Brewster, and he's still not scored. I think his league goal tally is at 8 in 5 years. Don't quote me on that. There's a chance he's gone beyond it because he did get a couple in recent weeks. But it's not good for that kind of money, shall we say. And then we went this season, and for the first time in Ryan Brewster's career, he played a game against Sheffield Wednesday for Sheffield United. And there was just something in it where you thought, you know what? It's been 5 years, 20 million quid. You've been everything that we've hated in terms of what's gone wrong in your career, everything that just hasn't worked. It's been a sort of exemplification of everything that's gone wrong with us in the last 5 years is Ryan Brewster. But you can be a hero. You can do something that other players don't have the chance to do. And of course he did it. He scored the winner at Hillsborough. We beat Wednesday, all on the, well, not all on the back. It's a tap in at the end of the day. But it was just one of those where it almost felt as though all season we joked about it. Like, can you imagine when Ryan Brewster scored the winner at Hillsborough? It's going to be hilarious. And then he did. And there's a little bit of a similar message, you know. Wouldn't it be funny if Tom Cannon's the one who gets the goal that gets us promoted? Wouldn't it, like, he's had all of this other stuff on his back. We've had these conversations about he's not getting any luck. Is he any good? How does he fit in the team? He finally gets his goal at Burnley, but it's a game that doesn't matter, and we lost anyway. Easy to forget. And so does he get that moment where you go, actually, it doesn't matter what you do with the rest of your time here. You make yourself a hero in a moment. And Brewster had it earlier this season. And yeah, I think it is on United's mind that, you know, Tyrese Campbell can only play an hour. He's only been able to play an hour all season. He's not got it in him, particularly on a pitch that's wider, that's bigger like Wembley is. He's not got the running in him to do 90 minutes. So Tom Cannon is going to be on the pitch at some point. And the question is it in that last 20 minutes that he is the one who makes himself a hero? And I do think that's the question that sort of goes around the mind.
If he does, I just want to put it on record. I still think he's shit. I still wouldn't have
Tell you what, I've got a
now.
record. Me too.
Sorry, Tom. I'm sorry.
I'm not.
No, actually, no, I'm not actually. Because if he does it, then I'm still not sorry. I'm still just going to double down on it. Sunderland are no stranger to Wembley curse. I went to, it was Charlton, Man City, Portsmouth in the, whatever the Pizza Cup was called. And then the one time we won at Wembley, no fans were allowed. And you thought, well, there you go. We broke it. League One playoff final. Am I
You didn't
sad?
realise that was no fans.
Yeah, well, no, the Wigan game was, but the Tranmere game the season before wasn't when we originally
right. When you
broke
did it.
And then you go to Wembley, and look, I'm not frightened to say that a third division final was one of the best days of my life because it was just full of relief and to get that kind of feeling of we can't win at Wembley off your back. So I'm going with a little bit less pressure. And then I go speak to you earlier this morning about something we'll come on to, tickets and things like that. And I realised Sheffield United have never won there. I know what that does to a fan. And you asked me before how I got over it in the Wickham game, which we can go on to. But how much is that playing on your mind at the minute? Because it's a real sort of millstone around your neck, isn't it?
100 years. That's what we're celebrating. 100 years the last time we won at Wembley. 1925, we won the FA Cup. You know, I could talk about my own experiences, but I actually think for this, it's more important to sort of reflect on my dad's, because he's obviously seen so much more than me. He's been a United fan since 1960, when he started going. He'd have been 5. And he's now, we went through it the other day, this will be his 10th trip to Wembley or an equivalent. And he's seen us lose all the previous 9. He's only seen us score in 2 games of the 9 that we've been to. One of those was losing to Wednesday when we did score and lost anyway. The other one was, you know, you said there, you know, a League One playoff final, one of the best days. Well, not my best, because obviously we have had others, but I would say in my top 5 best days ever watching United, we lost 5-3 at Wembley. And just the fact that I celebrated a goal there made it one of the greatest moments I've had watching United, because just that feeling. And so it's so much on my mind that we are chasing that feeling, but it's more than the Wembley curse, really, because, you know, ultimately, a lot of those games at Wembley you'd expect to lose because, you know, we've played Man City, we've played Arsenal, we've played Hull when we were in League One, they were in the Premier League. Like, you expect to lose those games. And so you almost rationalise it in your mind and say, you know what, it almost makes sense. But this is our 10th playoff campaign. I think our record currently stands at 9 playoff campaigns, 0 promotions, and hilariously, 1 relegation. Because we stand as, I think, the only team in England to have been relegated via a playoff with Bristol City, and I think it was 1989. It's an atrocious record, and that's one that really plays on my mind more than anything else, because we should have won a playoffs. Like, I go through it, just go in my lifetime of the teams that have beat us: Crystal Palace, Sunderland, Wolves. On the season, we got to the FA Cup semi-final, League Cup semi-final, and got done 3-0 at the Millennium Stadium. Burnley did us. We come third on the final day, just missing out to Birmingham. Huddersfield, what we referred to as the Jed Evans season, when Wednesday had pipped us, despite us being about 10 points clear in April. We've lost to Yeovil. We've lost to Swindon. We've lost to Notts Forest. There's so many that we've lost to teams where you sit there and you think, how are they the team that's done us? How is it this one? Like, how can Yeovil be the one? And, I asked a few sort of Sunderland fans, and, I asked yourself, and I'll come back to the question at the end, but I said to some Sunderland fans that I know, how did you get over it? How did you finally get rid of this feeling on your back that was just, we're always going to lose when we go there? And they kind of said to me, look, we went there that day and we said, if we can't beat Wycombe, what are we doing? Like, why would we be here at all if we're not going to beat Wycombe? And so that almost galvanised everybody. But we've done that. Like, I've done that. If we can't beat Huddersfield, why are we here? Like, I don't know what the moment is. I don't know where the line comes. So, as you can tell, it's massively on my mind.
It's funny you ask, because you said before you went, how did you get over it? And I can only speak from my own mindset, and I know everyone will back me up, and I think we've got the podcast receipts to prove it. I just manifested it. I just was like, I went, no, 3-1, we'll win these playoffs. And I said that before Sheffield Wednesday. I said, no, we'll be fine, we'll win this. And I convinced myself we were going to win it. And when I got there, my fiancée Ashley will tell you, she went, you were so calm. And I went, yeah, we'll get an early goal. Elliot Embleton bangs after 12 minutes. We'll get the second later on, we'll finish it, it'll be fine, we'll have a great day, and it'll be absolutely brand new, don't worry about it. I'll be honest and say I don't quite have that same level of calmness and coolness now we've had a half an hour conversation, but it was just a case of going, and pardon my French, we're not fucking losing this. I refuse to lose this, and if you lose this, none of those players are leaving that pitch without me having a very stern word with every single one of them. But you can't quite go in against Sheffield United, who I think are the favourites, because you finished above us. Simple as that. And I'm going to give you the parachute payment club thing as well. Just shove that in as well while I can, just because I want to. But I think you would be the favourites. But there's a little bit less pressure on it in that sense. But it's quite clear that we're gagging to get there. Look, we've spent all day fighting over tickets for friends, family, anyone, your dog, your cat, the whole lot. At the time of speaking, our tickets are like gold dust. And if you look on the ticket and touting websites, which I recommend you don't do because bugger touts are the worst people on the planet. They shouldn't be doing it. Ours are 571 at the moment. Sheffield United's are 271. So it's a £300 difference. And I says to you, you're a massive club. Sheffield United are a massive club. Of course they are. You've got history. You've got stature. I would put you in quite easily the top 20 clubs in England without a shadow of a doubt. And I said, you're a massive club, how are you not selling out? And you explained a little bit why that was the case. So for Sunderland fans going, why is Sheffield United, at the time of speaking, by the way, only selling 24,000 when we're literally selling our grandmas to try and get an extra ticket, why is Sheffield United not exactly flying out the door for tickets?
Yeah, I think we will get there, or at least we'll get close in terms of where we're coming now, in terms of sort of selling out our end and making sure that we've got everything there. But I think it's all of that context, really, where we've come to from before. And I think there's probably different ways of explaining it through. But, I said there, my dad's 70 and he's been to Wembley or an equivalent. This will be 10 times. And walking out of Huddersfield. So that day, for the context, we'd been 10 points clear of Wednesday with 5-6 games to go. We were up. It didn't matter what happened. We were going up. Then our star striker goes to prison, but, goes off to prison and our season collapses, completely falls apart. We don't get promoted. Wednesday are the team that's near it, and that brings up feelings. Then we go to Wembley and we play the worst game of football that anyone's ever seen. Anybody who sat through the 120 minutes of Sheffield United versus Huddersfield, who isn't a Sheffield United or Huddersfield fan, deserves some kind of commemorative plaque. because that was the worst game of football anybody will watch. But after 3 penalties, Huddersfield had scored 0 in that shootout. We were 2-0 up after 3 penalties in a penalty shootout at Wembley to get promoted. And we lost that penalty shootout after 11 each with our goalkeeper skying it, including the player that we subbed on in the 120th minute, taking our 4th penalty to win it and hitting the post. Walking out of Wembley that day, a number of United fans that I know, that I've spoken to, just said, I'm not doing this again. I'm just not coming here again. It happened. This happens every time. I've never seen us score. I've never seen us celebrate. I've never got that moment. I can't watch anybody else do this at Wembley in front of us again. And so many of them signed off it. So I think there's a generation, or there's a group of people that have this, I promised myself I wouldn't go again. And so I'm not. I'm just not doing it to myself. I'll do something different. I think it was our former player, Kevin Gage. He said, actually, I'm going to do something different. Every time I've done it, I've gone, we've lost. I'm going to have a barbecue with all my family, all my friends in the back garden. I'm going to have it on a big screen, put it up for everybody, and we're going to do it differently. Because I'm not being the jinx again. If we act different, we might get a different outcome. So that's the first bit. I then spoke to sort of some other podcast friends who do The Pinch, which is a fantastic Sheffield United sort of newsletter podcast. They really are awesome lads. And they said, well, yeah. And, I've got friends who say to me, I remember last season. I remember how bad it was. Do I want it again? What's the balance here? What's the trade-off? And my message to all those fans, to be honest, regardless of who they are, has always been, I don't care. I don't care if it hurt last time. It did. It'll hurt again. Okay. I don't care if the Premier League was rubbish and we got embarrassed every week. And I watched us have to see your favourites come and celebrating all over Bramall Lane, laughing at us because we were such a joke of a club. I don't care. Because, you said you manifested it. Well, this is me trying to manifest it because this time's going to be different. And this time I'm going to be sat in Wembley and we are going to win. And everybody who said they weren't going to go or wished they weren't going to go, they should have been there because we're going to do this one. This is our year. And it just has to be, because otherwise I don't know how many would go next time. It might just be me sat on my own. Just come on, United, woohoo! Just me with like a little clicker swinging it round, having a lovely day. But yeah, it's that sort of historic trauma. It's that fear of the Premier League. There's lots of things that have added together to say to United fans, and the cost, obviously, because it is, we have to recognise the context that we're in.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things that, this conversation is almost one of the reasons that I feared playing Sunderland more than any other. Because while I sit here and say, I think we will sell out just about, but there's going to be, a bit of chasing here and there, there's going to be 100,000 people go to London, even if they've not got a ticket, just to rock up for the day, because they can, and because it's Sunderland, and there's a celebration to be had. And that does have a difference. It does have an impact. And yeah, it's difficult and it's tough, but I can, as much as I don't buy into it, and I would scream at anybody, just go. You can't miss it. For the time we do it, you can't miss it. I can understand where they're coming from, even if I don't agree with it. And I'm always going to have to defend. I'll defend mine to the end.
No, I feel the same way. And it's funny you said about the Premier League, because I had the discussion with a few Coventry fans and teams that had a chance of either going up or had been up over the past few years, including Luton. In terms of sorry, Luton. And do I feel? I wrote a piece today in the Sunderland Echo. Funnily enough, I was on loan to the Sunderland Echo, as I put it. I work for the same company, but I just went on loan for a bit. It's a football thing, you see. Thought I was doing it funny, and I wrote about how I kind of fell out of love with football a little bit, because you've got two things: that the top six have decided Leicester City 2014-15 or whatever it is never going to happen again. So they've ploughed money into it. If you want to break that, and this is not a dig, but it is a dig, you have to be took over by overlords and an entire country. I like moments and I like the memories. And that Dan Ballard moment, no matter what happens, Ross, bless him, whose heart is breaking, my Coventry guest, said, "Oh, it means nothing if you don't get promoted." And I went, "Oh, it does. It does. It does." So from a Sheffield United perspective and a Sunderland one, you would say, just in case, have that moment and have that
The
memory.
moment.
But you talked about how I've got over the curse. I'm absolutely shitting myself because I'm staying over for 2 nights, and the one time we won, I only stayed over the one night, and I got the 7 train, and I haven't got the 7 train to the point where I tried to spend an extra £110 to change it, but it was sold out, and now I'm deciding, do I wear the same yellow shirt that I wore last time, or do I not do that because I wore my Fred Perry shirt throughout the entire Carling Cup campaign? When we got to Wembley, we got beat, so it didn't work then. So yeah, I actually still have that thing on my back of the Wembley curse a little bit because you kind of go, what did I do when we won? Like, what underpants did I wear?
Yeah.
When did I take a shit? When did I piss? Did I at any point leave my seat? Did I go down at half time? Did I stay in the seat? Did I buy a program? All of that's going through my head. My mate asked me to buy. He's a fan. That's just a program collector, not a Sunderland fan. But when you go down, can you please get me a program? I've never had one from a championship playoff game. I went, no, because
What?
last time I bought two, we got beat 3-1, and I'm not buying two, and I want one because I need to buy one because I bought one once and I only bought one and we won. So all of that still plays in my stupid mind. But anyway, let's go away from superstition because one of us has to win it. Both of us can't lose, or can we? Maybe we can.
Just a never-ending
Yeah,
penalty shootout for all of time.
just the preview of the preview of the preview. Never
Yeah,
ever a review show.
never.
Um, Two separate
Me and you be
questions.
running on to take penalties at one point when everybody else is just knackered. Just come on, we can do this.
I think I'd just give up. Looking at the outcome for both, and I've thought about it from a Sunderland perspective. What does it mean if we win? What does it mean if we lose? What does it mean if we win? I don't know yet, to be completely honest, because there's a multitude of things. Will we keep the players that we think are on the cusp of being Premier League ready? Yeah, much better chance because they're going to be in the Premier League. Doesn't necessarily mean we will. Can we add enough to it to stay up? Are we? I always take a lot of confidence from you coming on the show and telling me I think Sunderland are best set up to survive in the Premier League
I
because it
was going
made
to say
sense
it
to
again
me.
if you'd not said it for me.
Yeah, like you said that to me, and I always refer back to it when I'm having a conversation with friends. I go, well, some guy who got humiliated in the Premier League told me we're quite well set up, and he knows what it's like to be really bad.
Yeah,
But what it means if Sunderland lose, I think it's pretty obvious. I think the bigger name players might go. We might have to reinvest, and you might potentially, I hope not, have a season where you restabilize, if that makes sense. But for Sheffield United, it's a bit different because you're nothing like us, really. We're both very different clubs in the way we're set up. Two questions in one. What does it mean for Sheffield United if you win? What does it mean if you lose?
great question. What does it mean if we win? It means everything because nothing else matters. And I will come on to what it actually means in terms of the club and everything else going forward. But what it means is everything. It means that for the I get to
Have a
sit
good
there
day.
next to
Yeah.
my dad, next to my uncle, with my friends, and I get to just look at them and be like, this was the one. We've waited and waited, and this was the one. And that'll be a special moment, regardless of anything else or anything that comes next. That will be one of the most special moments of my life, possibly the one. It's hard I can't even imagine it. It's at that level of like, I just
No, I
can't
get it.
picture what that would look like
I had that 3 year
beyond.
ago. Totally get it. 100%.
Yeah. And so that is what it means. But beyond that, it means that we get embarrassed in the Premier League again. Like, I have no doubt of what happens next. And this is why, the reason I say that Sunderland are set up for this is it's the physicality of the team. It's the fact that these are young players developing into a system that are physical, that have got those explosive attributes. The bits that I said about are the keys that unlock United's door: speed, pace, and power. Well, that's what keeps you in the Premier League. That's what makes you competitive, should I say, in the Premier League. I'll be honest, I don't think anybody stays up. I don't even think Leeds do. But I think they'll be competitive because of those physical attributes that give you a level up, that give you the opportunity to compete. Whereas I think for us, we're still not there. I look at our team and I think we'd need to sign 5, 6, 7, 8. Like, I'm looking through and I think, well, at the bare minimum, we need a right back, a centre back, another centre back, a central midfielder, a striker, a right winger. And, we've not even really got started yet. And so there's so much work that we'd need to do to the squad. So it means another season of the target being 22 points. We don't want to get embarrassed. And I think for me, last time we got 16, and that was embarrassing. We got 16 points from a 38 game season and we conceded 104 goals, I think it was. It might actually be more in the end. So it means another season, but one that's just a bit better than that. It doesn't have to be loads and loads better. I would like to be the team that finished 19th and that get 26 points rather than the team that finished 20th and get 15, you know? So in the long run, it means ultimately we will have a very bad season that's not much fun next year. But as a club, we've got new owners. We've got new owners who are committed to the project being a Premier League team. I don't think they're massively committed to the project of being a championship team. I'm also looking at the championship and I'm saying that if we don't go up, then we're competing with Ipswich, Southampton, Leicester, but we're competing with Birmingham, we're competing with Wrexham, we're competing with Coventry. All of these teams are going to get better. There's a lot of money coming into a lot of different clubs around the Premier League. And so if we aren't going to go up this year, the task only gets harder from this point onwards. And so there's a lot of reasons that with parachute money running out, with the financial issues that we've had over the last 2 or 3 seasons, with the fact that we've got new owners who very clearly don't want a long-term championship project, that is, I got stuck between two words.
Project. Project,
yeah.
yes.
Yeah, you've got to just interchangeable. So the way that we pulled that together, I think for us, it's important. I think if we don't go up, I think it's, like I say, it's a much harder job next season, but it's also Anel will leave, Vinny Souza will leave, Gustavo Harmer will leave. Those 3 will be out of the door almost regardless of what happens. We could write them off at full time as soon as the whistle's blown if we lose this game. The other one that's a question mark would be Michael Cooper. Rumours are that basically if we don't go up, Leeds are coming and they're coming with a lot of money behind them. And so again, we may have to just completely rebuild the team again. And having already done that last summer, having to do it again this summer, but with less money and more pressure, brings a whole different argument to the equation. I think to an extent, it would make next season the most important in our recent history. And I've said this a few times, but effectively, every time the music stops on the parachute money, that season's the most important season that you've possibly got in your future. Because if you don't do it that season, then you're back in the pack with everybody else. Your advantage is gone, your boost is gone, you're back to just being a championship team. And we've got a big wage bill. We've spent big money on transfer fees. We can't afford to not have that money behind us. So, yeah, it's one of those where the next 12 months don't look fun if we win, but the next 12 minutes look like the greatest thing that could ever happen. And if we lose, then the next 12 months will be a lot more fun. We'll have so much more of an enjoyable time in the championship again, competing for the top 2, being in the top 6, winning most weeks, no VAR, all of that fantasticness, but wrapped up within this existential crisis of, but what does it mean for the football club if we fail again? And so it's a really difficult trade-off where we seem to be in this everlasting cycle now of, oh, yes, we've got to get promoted. It's amazing. Oh, no, being in the Premier League's rubbish. Oh, God, if we don't get promoted, what do we do? And it's just like I feel like I'm constantly on the edge of a nervous breakdown.
There is a point when I've decided now that what matters most in football is the moments. But it'll be, look, would I let it get back just for a bit of crack? Yeah. What it really means for me, if I'm completely not honest, if we go up, is I have to find loads of other people that I like from other like podcasts in the Premier League. So I'll be getting like Steve, the massive Man United fan from Central London. Final question that I think I know where it's going to go. It's got to go the one way. Predictions as always. I'll go me first. I actually do fancy us. I actually do. Just because that Wembley curse is a little bit off our back, so I can go with a little bit less pressure. But what I will say is, I did say from the beginning, get past Coventry will be sound. And there's a part of me that now we're past Coventry, I'm like, it's sound. So I don't really know how to explain that. I've had my moment. I've had my memory. Something that'll probably never leave me. If there's another one on top of that, fucking brilliant. Fantastic. I'll take it. Great. I'll probably rip the piss out of Chris Wilder for the best part of 6 weeks. And
oh, yeah.
I'll message
Deservedly
you.
so.
Yeah. I'll be a football fan for 6 weeks and then I'll go on holiday and X, Y, and Z. But I feel like ultimately I do fancy us. But if we don't, I I'm going to be in the same place in August, aren't I? I'm going to be back at the Stadium Light with a season ticket. It is what it is. But I'll say 2-0 Sunderland because we won 2-0 last time at Wembley. So I'll wear my yellow shirt, the same one last time, and we'll win 2-0.
Stick with what you know. Yeah, I'm having a real head versus heart dilemma. That's what keeps hitting me here. If you'd have asked me, stood in Bramall Lane at full time against Bristol City, I would have told you we win this game 3-1. I said the, Starman started playing, they got the flag out for Baldock, they were walking around the pitch, and with a lump in my throat, I was looking at my uncle, who sits 2 rows behind, and I said, it's different. Different this time. This is our time. Like, this isn't how it ends. This isn't the moment where we sit here and go, this fails. This wins. This is just it this time for us. And it's our time to have it. And then that little demon just popped his head up and he went, have you considered that you'll forget to turn up on the day and lose 1-0? And and I said, what do you mean? There's no way that we'll forget to turn up on the day and lose 1-0. And then he listed all the times that we forgot to turn up on the day and lost 1-0. And that is a gnawing sensation. But I think my heart wins. I think this time, that feeling in Bramall Lane, that it was just different, really wins out. That feeling of this is a club pulling in the right direction. This is just dedicated to the memory of a player who meant so much to so many people at Bramall Lane, who was taken from us so young, and just hearing and shouting and celebrating for him in his voice with his song has made the last few games feel so much more special and so much more like we're doing this with something else in mind and something guiding us. And so I think we're going to win. I do. I think it's different this time. I'm committed. We're winning. We're going up. It's 3-1 United.
You know, I can't even clip this up because you're too nice of a guy. If you fuck it up, I can't even clip it up and be like, hey, I can it. You're too nice of a man.
But what it's worth, the Leeds fans did that and got 350,000 views on Instagram. So if you fancy it, it's fine. Just tag me. It'll be great.
I'd never do that to you. Only Coventry fans. Sorry, Ross. Ollie, have a really good day at Wembley, mate. I always say have a shite day. Have a shite result, but have a good day.
Yes. We'll have both ways. I hope you have an amazing time. Hope you have a lovely journey up. I hope it's a fantastic day. And I hope that from 3 o'clock onwards,
It's shite.
Good luck. I hope it's shite, but good luck.
Yeah, back at you, mate. Spot on.
Cheers, mate.